music, great programs. LCC Radio, 89.7 WLNZ, Lansing.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Time to wake up, time to wake up. Wake up in the morning with the Coffee Break Show. Time to wake up, time to wake up. Wake up in the morning with the Coffee Break Show. Good time music helps you start your day. Starting your morning the Coffee Break way. Time to wake up, time to wake up. Wake up in the morning with the Coffee Break Show.
Hey, welcome. It is the Coffee Break Show. Jack Robbins here. Karen's on vacation. We're looking at a beautiful day today. Sunshine with a high of about 83. Good summertime forecast, too. Tonight, clear skies, low 58. And then for tomorrow, will be about the same. Mostly sunny with a high in the low 80s. Saturday calling for partly sunny with a high of about 87. Maybe a little bit of rain at times. As we'd like to say, maybe a wandering shower out there. But for the most part, it's going to be nice. It's going to be hot, though, up near 87, maybe 90 degrees. And then on Sunday, we should top out at the 90-degree mark, maybe a little above that. Sunny and hot, they say. So there you have it. A lot of events happening around town that are going to be outside. Beginning on Sunday, it's going to be a hot Red Cedar Jubilee. They light up the streets of Williamston for about a week, and they have the lawnmower races and the duck drop and the food and beverage tents and live music. Fun time in Williamston. The Oldsmobile Homecoming. They're going to bring the Olds back to town at the Auto Owners Insurance Complex on the west side. We're going to have somebody in to talk about this event that's been going on for 26 years in the greater Lansing area. Also, the Lansing Juneteenth celebration, African American parade taking place this weekend. It all kicks off today, and they'll be moving over to St. Joe Park. The parade is on Saturday, and just many, many events. Also, the Dirty Feet Adventure Race. This is a feat, not as in F-E-E-T, but in F-E-A-T. The Dirty Feet Adventure Race will take place at Patriarch Park, run all through East Lansing, and then they'll be meeting back at Patriarch. And it's Saturday from 7 a.m. till 1 p.m. Ought to be a hot day for that. Good day for a beer fest, though. Saturday from 1 till 6. Going to be down at Rio Town, and they're going to have 25 Michigan breweries featured. They're going to have meads and beers and ciders and spirits, wine, you name it, and music and food as well. The Michigan Pride March, Rally and Festival taking place in Old Town. It'll be up and down Turner Street. That'll be Saturday beginning at noon. Also, the Monty Python Spamalot. This is the last weekend at the Riverwalk Theater for that. Also, last weekend for Out of Orbit, the production put on by the Williamston Theater. Grand Ledge Music in the Park tonight. It's going to be the Root Doctor, one of my all-time favorites. The Root Doctor is going to take the stage at J.C. Park at 7 o'clock. You can check that out. It's free to the public, of course. MSU Summer Circle Theater, Love is in the Air. They conclude this Saturday. It's called Love and Other Junk, and you can check that out near the auditorium by the Rock, down by the river in the campus of Michigan State University. Okay, let's see. What do we got here? We got a couple of things we want to make mention. Birthdays today, first of all. I see where Donald Trump is celebrating his 72nd birthday, and Boy George is 57. How about a couple from the lighter side here? Let's start with this one, first of all, because Father's Day's coming up on Saturday. Don't forget Dad, I'm just saying, okay? A survey of 1,000 U.S. fathers by Offers.com finds the gift that Papa would most like to receive this Father's Day is a handwritten card from his kids, okay? And no matter how old they are, they'd like to have that. That tops the traditional gifts such as electronics and sporting goods and gardening tools. Now, at the bottom of the list, forget about the socks and the shaving tools. They come at the bottom of the list. And also gift baskets, not so good. Personal hygiene products, no. And undergarments, tighty-whities and boxer shorts, that's at the bottom, way at the bottom of the list, okay? I'm just saying. All right. Well, let's see. On this date in history, this is Flag Day, by the way. You want to get out and fly the Stars and Stripes. Congress adopted the Stars and Stripes on this date in 1777. The flag of the United States would be 13 alternate stripes, red and white. and that the Union be 13 stars, white in a blue field representing a new constellation. We call it the Stars and Stripes, of course, and we celebrate it today as Flag Day. The UNIVAC computer was dedicated on this date. This was a computer that was probably a little hard to put in your back pocket. It weighed 16,000 pounds, used 5,000 vacuum tubes, and could perform about 1,000 calculations per second. This was back in the summer of 1951, the big UNIVAC, which stood for Universal Automatic Computer. And I guess the ENAC, which came out second, cost about $500,000. Things have changed since the 50s, haven't they? And happy birthday to the U.S. Army. They're celebrating at camps all over the country. It was created in 1775. I can tell you in Fort Benning, the trainees will only have to do 25 push-ups instead of 50. That's a big deal. Yeah, National Bourbon Day. Like Scotch and cognac, some other spirits that must meet certain standards as well as be produced in a particular geographical area. If it's bourbon, it has to be distilled here in the United States. There'll be a celebration, I'm sure, in Bourbon County, Kentucky. They make a lot of bourbon down there. And as far as nursery rhymes go, this is National Pop Goes the Weasel Day. So a couple of things going on, some birthdays. I think we've covered that portion of the Coffee Break Show. We're going to be right back. This is LCC Radio and TV.
If you're gonna tell them everything.
They call themselves the State Drive. Let me try that again. Lake Street Dive. Oh, I got that wrong, didn't I? This is LCC Radio and TV. It's good to have you along. Valerie Marvin is with us. She's with the Michigan State Historian and Curator. She is a curator and a historian. And also the Vice President of the Historical Society of Greater Lansing. Did I get that right?
You did.
Okay, very good. Good to have you here.
Good to be back. Thank you.
You occasionally do some summer walking tours, and we're in sort of a summer atmosphere. It's not exactly summer, but it feels like it today. And tonight there's a big one coming up at the Cherry Hill neighborhood. This is Cherry Hill 2.
Yes.
Part 2.
So we do about a half dozen walking tours every summer with the Historical Society of Greater Lansing, and we like to go all over the city and the surrounding areas. And last year it was suggested that we do a tour in Cherry Hill, which is a neighborhood that some of us have heard of, but most of us can't place. It's very close to downtown. It's bordered on the west side by Grand Avenue, on the east side by the river, on the north side by Kalamazoo, and on the south side by 496 and St. Joe.
And it's unique because there are some 19th century homes there.
There is quite a collection of late 19th century homes that have survived, and that's unusual for Lansing. Downtown Lansing used to have a lot of late 19th century housing stock, but a lot of it came down over the years with the construction of the highway, with the creation of the Capitol complex.
Right.
So this is really a great neighborhood that's just kind of flies under the radar for most people. And it's got a wonderful blend of architectural styles. So with tonight's tour, we're going to be talking about a cluster of brick houses that are around the corner of Hillsdale and Grand. Most of them are from the 1870s, 1880s, which is pretty early for Lansing still.
Right.
And we'll be talking about how they were used as single-family homes initially. Then starting really in the 1920s, you start to see a lot of the homes split up into apartments. And that happened partly because there was such a need for housing in the city. And Lansing's population was almost doubling every 10 years with the growth of manufacturing. And you had to find a place to put all these people.
So what is typical of these particular homes? If people can sort of vision a 19th century home, what's typical of these homes?
Sure. So the homes are brick or wooden construction. Most of them have a gable roof on them, big windows. Of course, this is an era before electric lights, so you need to bring in as much natural light as possible. In fact, the best houses have big bay windows because those bring even more light inside. They have front porches, many of them. That was, before air conditioning, that was how you cooled off as you sat on the front porch.
In Michigan, it was probably pretty cool, too, in the summertime back then.
And if you walked into the house, you would see that most of them start off with more formal rooms in the front. So there would be a formal hallway or entryway. You'd have a front parlor that we'd today call living room. And the kitchen would always be at the back of the house. It would be much smaller than a modern kitchen. So these houses were really designed to impress and to really put your best foot forward. These were houses that you always went in the front door. You didn't go in the back door. That
Really?
wasn't how life worked at that time. This was all about putting your best foot forward. And there's all kinds of fun architectural details on them. So the brick houses are built in the Italianate style, which was popular in the post-Civil War period in America. And one hallmark of the style are brackets on the roofline. They're wooden. They're ornamental. Sometimes they're painted 3 or 4 different colors to bring out the details. And they have no real function. You don't need that bracket to hold up the roof. In fact, they would often make the roofs hang out further in order to...
I've seen those brackets, yeah.
To feature a bracket.
I thought they held up part of the roof or something like that for the eaves troughs.
In theory, they do, but you could build a perfectly decent roof that was just a little bit smaller and not need a bracket.
That was the style back then.
It was the style. In fact, I had an architecture professor at one point in time who related brackets and the fancy slate roofs you would have found on some of these homes as to the big fancy ladies' hats that were popular at the time. No proper home was dressed without its brackets and without its colored slate tiles.
Who were the people that lived there? Were they wealthy people from Lansing, or were they middle class?
It's really a combination. You do see some industrialists here. The people we're going to be talking about tonight on the tour are people who lived there largely in the early 20th century as the neighborhood's changing. We're going to be talking about a stepson of a state legislator who was from Detroit, moved to Lansing to serve in the legislature, and ended up working for state government the rest of his life in the executive. We're going to be talking about some folks who worked in the auto industry. Railroads were a large employer at one point in time. One of the homes was owned by Fred Potter, who worked for the Grand Trunk Railway. And because of his connection with the railroad, he got to take these fantastic trips all across the country all the time. And he was frequently noted in the society columns in the newspaper for his travels, which is kind of cool.
Now, did he have anything to do with Potterville?
I don't know if he's connected to that family or not.
Okay.
Certainly, there's also the Potter family of Potter Park.
Right.
But I've not been able to find a link yet. Doesn't mean it's not there. Probably the most interesting character, I will call him, I've found with this group of houses was a man named Rudolph Loomis. He was, for over 50 years, a circuit court stenographer for Ingham County. Also was on Lansing City Council at the turn of the century. He lived a fascinating life. He was politically inclined, but also just liked to try his hand at this and that. He owned a large cherry orchard up in Traverse City at one point in time. He would take road trips that would take him across, a dozen states in the summer. Probably the funniest article I found, though, was his third wife, I think. I'm up to 4 currently. I'm not sure if I'm missing one. His third wife entered a dance contest in the late 20s at a dance hall in Grand Ledge. And this made the newspaper when it was noted that this, serious stenographer for the court system was being called the dance angel, as he would go out every day and take treats to cheer her on. The newspaper...
That is pretty hilarious.
Yes. The newspaper referred to their relationship as an October-May marriage, meaning that he was over 50, as he put it in the article, really over 60, and she was in her 20s at the time.
Wow.
He also made the newspaper when Governor Ziegler flew him to Mason for work one day, because he had been publicly bragging about the fact that, he had been doing this for so long, that he had gone by train, he'd gone by horse and buggy, he had walked there, he had bicycled there, and Governor Ziegler apparently heard about this, and as a pilot, offered to fly him and add one more mode of transportation.
That's just about covers it, doesn't it?
It does. It does. The same article, though, says that as he was bragging about this, he realized one day he had never actually ridden on horseback. So he approached a stable in the area, rented a horse for himself, and also paid to have a second horse with an attendant go with him because he had not ridden on a horse for many, many years since he was a little boy on a farm. And they rode out to Mason one day. So
That's
he could
funny.
also say he went on horseback.
Wow, he did it all, didn't he?
He did.
You know, it's interesting. And I know you love research, and I do too. I love research. Isn't it fun to be able to find articles like this and then
is.
tell people about it? And they say, "Gee, I never knew that."
Well, and it makes the houses come alive. You
It
know,
does.
it's so easy to just drive by these buildings and say, oh, that's a nice old house, or not really notice it. But we forget the fact that real people have lived in these houses, real people have taken care of these houses, and they become a part of it.
That's what makes these walking tours so interesting because, you know, you could talk about the architecture, and that in itself is very interesting. But the fact that you can talk about the people who live there
Right.
and tell these stories, that really makes it special.
And one thing that I love about these walking tours is so often, you know, we'll have someone suddenly raise their hand and say, oh, you know, my family knew that family.
Wow.
Last year when we were in the Cherry Hill neighborhood, I was standing there on the sidewalk talking about a house, and suddenly the owner comes to the door and starts to introduce herself and starts to talk about how she and her husband bought this house 30 years ago and all the restoration work they've done on it. Totally unscripted, but it was wonderful.
That's interesting.
Because she was so proud of what they had been able to do to preserve the home. And it was great for us to see a living example of stewardship in the neighborhood.
You know, it's interesting because I really never thought about that. When you're doing walking tours, you're walking past people's homes. I mean, they're probably saying, who are these people? What are they doing outside of our door?
We make sure we stay in the public right away. So we're on the sidewalks, we're in the road. And, you know, this is one reason we don't do walking tours on like major thoroughfares
Right, that's probably not a
necessarily.
bad idea.
But, you know, at the end of the day, people are a little surprised sometimes when they look out their front window and see 40 people standing there.
Right.
But
Pointing.
people are also really excited that somebody else cares
Right.
and is interested in their home. You know, most of us take pride in our homes. We put a lot of work into them, certainly. And it's kind of nice to have people say, hey, good job.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Well,
what
if
you're
you
doing.
live in a historical home, you got to expect some people to
Yes.
stop and slow down and take a look at your house, right?
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about the specifics of where you want people to meet. I mean, we talked
Sure.
about, you know, exactly where it was located, and I got a pretty good idea where it is, but where specific would you show up?
So we are going to start at the park, actually. That's right on the west side of the river. It's kind of where St. Joe dead ends. It's Cherry Hill Park is what it's called these days. River Street and St. Joe would be your closest intersection. And the tour starts at 7 o'clock. It'll take probably about an hour and a half or so. There is no fee. No reservations are required. Bring your kids if you want to. Bring your dog if you want to. These are very informal. We're just a group of people who are kind of nerdy about history and like to enjoy a nice evening stroll. This is, of course, only one of a series also of walking tours that we're doing.
Right.
And this is number 2 of the summer. We're going to be doing a tour in a section of Michigan Avenue. We're going to be going to the Moores Park neighborhood. So that's on the east side of MLK. We will be also doing another tour in the west side neighborhood. Some beautiful homes
Sure
back
there
there.
are.
And, you know, that's where you start to get into the, you know, the auto executives
industry, yeah.
and high-level state officials.
Right.
And then, God, I'm gonna
I've got my
embarrass myself.
list here.
You've got your
I'm
list
gonna
right
let you
here.
take a look at
What
it.
am
all
I
right?
missing?
I'm not sure.
Cherry Hill. Oh, South Capitol Avenue. Shame
Okay.
on me. I'm giving that tour. So we're going to start at the Capitol. This is actually in conjunction with the Ari Olds Transportation Museum. It's the
Okay.
day of their downtown car show. So we're going to start at the Capitol and we're going to walk south. We'll talk about the library. We'll talk about Reuter Park. We'll talk about the Masonic Temple. We might go around by the old YMCA and really look at, you know, what's there that's made it. Talk about a few things that didn't make it over the years. but that's a direction we've not gone yet downtown.
So these all typically start at 7 o'clock.
Yes.
Okay.
Most of them are Thursday evenings. They start at 7 p.m. There are a couple, though, on Saturdays.
That's what
One
I
of the
thought.
car show is Saturday at 10 o'clock.
Very good. So Cherry Hill 2 tonight at 7 o'clock with Valerie Marvin. Sounds like a lot of fun. Just we got a little time here. We could talk a little bit about what you do with the Michigan State as a historian and curator. Anything
Sure.
going on right now that we can
there's
talk
a
about?
lot of stuff going on at the Capitol. We just wrapped up session for the spring, so we are actually going to be bringing the infrastructure upgrade project that everyone's been noticing as they drive by on the outside of the building. That's going to be coming inside. So we're going to be updating some of our mechanical systems, heating and cooling systems, basically in the north wing of the building this summer. So that's the house wing. We are still going to have tours going on. That's the number one question we get. Yes, the building
Sure.
is still open. People are welcome to come inside. The only difference is we're not going to be able to show the house chamber this summer on tours because it is an active construction site.
That would be a little. You don't have enough hard hats to
Right,
pass around, do you?
This phase of the project will go through the summer, and then when Labor Day hits, we will wrap that up and the legislature will be back in. In the meantime, we have lots of summer events coming up. We're going to be having our farmers markets on the lawn again this
those are
summer,
the best.
July, August, and September. Everyone loves to come down for
They are
those.
the best. Yeah.
We're doing some work on the grounds. We're going to be pouring the roof soon for our underground central utility plant that we're building, which is very exciting. That's going to house all of the head-end equipment for the new geothermal system that's going in. And then we are also working on just improving our landscaping. So some work on the flower beds. We planted our carpet beds a few weeks ago.
Very good.
Thanks to all the volunteers who came down who were a part of that. One of our traditions is every May, volunteers come and they help us plant about 10,000 annuals on the lawn.
Oh, is that all? 10,000
Only,
annuals?
yes. And what's really neat is as they grow and fill in, you can actually see patterns in them. They're called carpet beds for two reasons. They were popular in the Victorian era. First reason is when they fill in, they're supposed to be very dense, so it almost has the plush factor of a carpet. But secondly, they're very ornate, and the designs in them, the colors, actually mimic the colors and patterns of late 19th century interior decoration.
So interesting. A lot of people wouldn't know that if they looked at it.
And we actually look to the Capitol's interior for design inspiration. So this year, the pattern in the flower beds is actually part of the pattern cast into our hardware. If you've been to the Capitol, you know we have
really?
some really cool door hinges that have the
Right.
state coat of arms pressed into them. The flower beds are actually based on one of the border patterns on those door hinges. So it's kind of cool to see how you can take a decorative motif and play with it and reinvent it.
It's interesting how it all comes together, I'll tell you that.
It does.
Valerie, thanks for being with us, talking about the Cherry Hill neighborhood tonight at 7 o'clock. Should be a beautiful night for it.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you coming in. This is LCC Radio and TV, and we're going to be right back. This is LCC Radio and TV, and it's good to have you along. We're on the Coffee Break Show. Mike Megacy is with us. He's with the American Cancer Society, and he's a health systems manager. And Mike, appreciate you coming in today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Now, what does a health systems manager do?
That's a good question. I'm glad you asked that.
That's the first one.
Yeah. I'm like a liaison between the American Cancer Society and larger hospital systems in Southwest Michigan. For example, here locally, I work with the Herbert Herman Cancer Center at Sparrow and also the Breslin Center Cancer Center over at McLaren.
So specifically, what do you do?
I sit on their cancer committees.
Okay.
And report out what the relationship, how it has progressed between ACS and the hospital. For example, how many patients are referred to ACS, how many services we've been able to provide to people, like road to recovery rides to treatment for patients, personal health managers, which is a kit that patients can receive from us that helps them stay organized and has specific information regarding their specific cancer and the type of treatment that they're receiving.
You know, it's amazing how it has changed and how thorough a job the American Cancer Society does when it comes to people who are diagnosed with cancer. That Road to Recovery program and some of the other programs, I mean, I don't know what people would do without them, and I don't know what they did without them before.
Yeah, it's amazing. I know when my father was going through treatment, he utilized the program multiple times because there were times that neither my mother nor I could take him. And without that, he wouldn't have been around as long as he was, I'm sure of it.
It's incredible.
Yeah. I know that I was speaking with the hospital up in Grand Rapids this morning at 7, and so far in Kent and Ottawa counties in western Michigan, we provided over 900 rides to treatment for cancer patients. And here locally, we're probably somewhere around, in the Ingham-Eaton County area, we're probably somewhere around 500 rides to treatment for patients.
I would imagine the physicians, the cancer treatment physicians, rely on the American Cancer Society a lot.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because, like, say, for example, in this situation, if a patient can't get to treatment, they need to reschedule that. And it's costly for the hospital. Mm-hmm. And, the patient's not at their cancer treatment. And if you can imagine sitting at home knowing you're supposed to be getting your chemotherapy or radiation or whatever the case may be. And we're always in need of drivers for that program. If people are interested in volunteering for that program, we'd love to have you. Our phone number for that is our National Call Information Center at 800-227-2345. And the nice thing about that number is that people can call that number 24/7 every day of the year and ask questions regarding their type of cancer.
That in itself is a great resource as well. We had one of the folks that did the driving, and she was a survivor, and she has befriended a lot of the people that she drives to these to the hospital and so forth, and it's really become quite a passion for her. It's just a great organization, a great resource, I should say.
Yeah, well, thank you. And oddly enough, most of our road recovery drivers are survivors.
Yes, absolutely.
Who've gone through the treatment, and they can empathize with the people who need the rides.
Well, I want to talk about June a little bit. You had Survivors Day just recently, and when was that? Was that last week?
Yeah, it was on June 3rd. It was
June 3rd,
National
okay.
Cancer Survivors Day. And, the whole premise of it is to celebrate survivorship. Mm-hmm. And right now in the country, there are over 15 million cancer survivors living in the United States. And, death rates are decreasing. And a lot of that can be attributed to, research that's funded by ACS as well as the federal government. We're the second largest funder of cancer research. Over the years, let's put it this way. Our goal by 2021 is to have over $200 million a year going specifically for cancer research.
That's wonderful. Should be. There's so many, everybody knows somebody that's been touched by that disease. There's no doubt about it. And great breakthroughs that are being done with chemotherapy recently for breast cancer and so forth, and how that is all changing.
Right. I know that last week here in Lansing at the Capitol, the House Insurance Committee had oral chemotherapy parity legislation, which means that insurance companies would have to treat oral chemotherapy the same way they treat infused chemotherapy. And the House Insurance Committee referred the bill to the Health Policy Committee, which is probably a good thing. Mm-hmm. It's been referred to the House Insurance Committee 8 different times, and no action is ever done on it. Right, yeah. So hopefully the Health Policy Committee will be able to give us a fair hearing on that, and we can get that through the legislature. The state Senate passed it 37-1.
That is big news. It really is, because we've had some of the folks that work on the legislative end of the American Cancer Society to talk about this. It seems like a no-brainer for most of us, but there's some holdup, I guess, and it has been for many, many years.
Yeah, it is a complex issue, especially when you're involving insurance regulation and insurance companies.
Insurance companies, yeah.
Yeah, because there's a powerful lobby there.
Yeah, exactly.
And hopefully it'll get through this time.
Something else you're addressing in June is the LGBT community. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the LGBT communities, June is Pride Month. Mm-hmm. And ACS has participated in 21 Pride events around the country. And, it's a community that's not well known per se.
Right.
And it faces a disproportionate burden as far as cancer is concerned. There's a stigma out there and some fear of discrimination when people from the LGBT community speak with health providers. Mm-hmm. Many of them don't reveal their sexuality for fear of discriminatory treatment. And at the same time, we don't have a lot of statistics as far as, cancer and the LGBT community. We do know through some research that screenings take place at a later time. We do know that insurance companies don't always cover domestic partners as they would if it's
Right.
traditional husband and wife marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was thinking about this on the way up here on the drive in. When I go see the doctor, I've never been asked what my sexual orientation is.
Right.
And it's, I'm thinking about that. Has anyone ever asked me that question?
Mm-hmm.
And my doctors never has. And so I'm thinking that's probably one reason why we don't have information.
Exactly.
And there is a group out there called pridestudy.org.
Mm-hmm.
And one of their purposes is to get health information from the LGBT community. And I did some look at their website before driving up here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fascinating, the information that they're gathering. And hopefully,
it's great that the American Cancer Society would address these issues.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You're doing a wonderful job.
Yeah. And we have literature that is specific for lesbian, for gay men, and the cancer risks that they face.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting when you talked about the sexuality. Nobody would normally say anything to you and I, but in some circles, it would be a very embarrassing, to a certain extent, and difficult question for some.
Yeah, and if doctors do ask that question, some patients still may not be willing to reveal that.
Exactly.
And revealing that just helps not just themselves, but it helps people down the road as well.
Right.
And so, we encourage as much information as possible be given to the health physicians in order to better treat not just the patient in the room, but, patients in the future.
Mike, I appreciate you coming on today. It's a lot of good information. If people want to kind of follow these topics, would they go to the website? Would that be the best way?
Yeah, you can go to cancer.org, where there's a veritable plethora of information.
Okay.
And you can call our 800 number as well. And there's a good chance when you call the 800 number, you can possibly even speak with an oncologist and ask questions specifically to your cancer.
That's interesting. Yeah. Mike Megacy with us, the American Cancer Society. He's a health system manager. I appreciate you coming in today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This is LCC Radio and TV, and we're going to be right back. That is Kim Moe. This is LCC Radio and TV, and we're on the Coffee Break Show. Here's a guy we see at least once a year. Steve Zabin is with us, and he's part of the Oldsmobile Homecoming. Steve, how you doing?
Real good, thank you.
It's been a while, and let's talk a little bit about the Homecoming, which is coming up this Saturday. This is a big event in the greater Lansing area.
Yeah, absolutely. It's at the Auto Owners headquarter complex there on, right off Kreitz Road at 496. It's just a quarter mile north. They have a huge parking lot, and 26 years, and we may break a record this year. We usually get 500, 540, 550 cars. We think we're going to do 600 this year.
No kidding. Why this year, do you suppose?
Well, the word,
a lot of 67s out there, are there?
Yeah. Social media is helping a lot, but we're featuring the Hearst Oldsmobile. It's the 50th anniversary. They made that car limited production vehicle. The first one was 1968, so it's 50 years. So we've decided to invite the entire Hearst Olds Club and all the different Hearst Olds models, and people just keep coming back. They love coming to Lansing.
Right. Where's the Hearst? Where are they located at? Where's the club located?
Well, the Hearst Olds Club actually, I can't tell you. It used to be here in Lansing, but they have different members, but mostly here in Lansing. And they're affiliated with the Oldsmobile Club of America, which we all are. So
do people travel in from out of state to be here all over the place?
Oh yeah, they come from as far as California.
Do they really?
Oh yeah, Kentucky, California, Ohio. We even get a number of people from Canada that come, and they like the new location now because there's a hotel right on the grounds and a hotel right across the street. And a lot of restaurants, easy to get around, and they just enjoy Lansing a lot.
You know, that Oldsmobile nameplate is so synonymous with Lansing. When I came here in the early 70s, I mean, it was all about Oldsmobile. And I tell you, I've owned a lot of automobiles, and I've owned more Oldsmobiles than I have anything else. And some beauties, too, the 442s and You got a picture on your poster of the 1994 convertible. I had one of those at one time. The Oldsmobile is one of the best made automobiles in the world.
Well, it was started here with Ramson Olds back in the early 1900s, a real pioneer in the first Oldsmobile. And this all started, we've been doing it 26 years, but it all started with the 100th anniversary. So we did like a pre-show and realized how successful it was. And our club has grown from almost to 190 members. And, the impact in Lansing here is tremendous, because we know for a fact, as of we sit here, there's 264 rooms that are going to be used in the greater Lansing area.
I'm sure there is, yeah. Now, didn't there used to be a parade at one time?
Well, yeah, they did for the 100th anniversary.
I thought so, yeah.
We did a huge parade around right around the city. Yeah, a big parade, but yeah, there'll be about 130 vendor spaces used, 90 vendors. We're anticipating about 30 cars for sale. And again, this is all Oldsmobile, nothing else but Oldsmobile.
That's why they call it the Oldsmobile Homecoming, right?
That's why we call it the Homecoming. That's correct.
So it's not only a show, but it's a swap as well. What type of things typically do people swap at these meets?
Well, most of the vendors that bring stuff are mostly Oldsmobile parts and Oldsmobile memorabilia and collectible things. And there's just a tremendous amount of history. And people, in this town, there's 3 generations of families that all worked for Oldsmobile or General Motors at one time, and it's free to the public. Doesn't cost you a dime to come and see it. There's food booths there. The Kiwanis will be there. The Boy Scouts are there. They're selling water, and I understand it's going to be pretty hot Saturday.
It's going to be a warm day, but it's going to be, at least they'll be glad to have those cars out. Don't worry about the weather.
Yeah, to put the tops down is great.
So what about the Curve Dash? You can have one of those out there?
We have quite a few of those every year.
Do you really?
And we'll probably have 3-4 of them, Curve Dashes. So from 1903 to 1993, they'll all be there. So
how about you? Do you have, Steve, you have an Oldsmobile?
Oh, yeah. I have 2 1970s. They're both... One's a 70 442 convertible pace car.
Great year.
And the other one's a 70 Vista Cruiser station wagon.
Now, how are you going to get both those out there?
Well, I have a young gentleman in my neighborhood that'll drive one.
You trust somebody else to drive your cars?
Yeah, he'll drive the wagon.
Oh, he'll drive the wagon, yeah. So when does this start? What time of day?
Okay, Saturday, 9 to 3.
Okay.
And then afterwards, there's a little function at the Oldsmobile Museum. They'll be open. And a lot of people will go down there afterwards. So 9 to 3, it's one day. We keep it to one day. And then Friday night, tomorrow night, they're cruising down to Diamondale, downtown Diamondale.
That'd be cool.
And we're going to pack the little town with about 150 Oldsmobiles. And it's a fun event. You should come to that. They have a band playing on the street, playing oldies. And a lot of the out-of-towners just love coming to it. So
that will be a lot of fun. Now, you talked earlier about the location. A lot of people, maybe they're not quite sure where the complex is, the auto owners insurance complex. What would be the best way to get out there? And where would you park?
Well, there's lots of parking.
Oh, is there? Okay.
Yes, the secondary complex. The auto owners complex is a huge parking lot. And there's lots of parking all around it, and then the hotels across the street where people will be staying. But there's plenty of parking, and it's easy to get to. It's 496 off of I-496, and you take the Kreitz Road exit.
Okay.
And you would just go north only a quarter mile off of 496 at the Kreitz Road exit. So it's really easy to get to. Logistically, it's real easy. It's all 4-lane roads.
Okay.
And you can't miss it. There'll be banners and signs in the road to pull into their complex.
Good deal. So it's actually on Kreitz Road then?
Absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
Very good. So there's a lot of ways to get there. Always a pleasure having you in. I appreciate you coming in, Steve, and talking about this. I know it's going to be a busy day. A lot of people want your attention this time of year to talk about these Oldsmobiles, and be a lot of 1967s out there. It ought to be an exciting time. The weather's going to be absolutely perfect. Appreciate you coming in, Steve.
Yeah, thank you
Good
for the time.
You.
Yep.
Steve Zabin, Oldsmobile Homecoming, coming up Saturday. You can check that out. This is LCC Radio and TV, and we're going to be right back.
If you wanna talk to me, know that I am plain to see. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I don't want this fame to be staining my reality. Yeah. Yeah. Don't lift me up to tie me down. I just wanna love it. Baby, stay with me on the ground. Talk with me, let me go. Got to keep it low. Talk with me, let me go. Got to keep it low. Don't lift me up to tie me down. I just wanna love it. Baby, stay with me on the ground. Talk with me, let me go. Got to keep it low. Talk with me, let me go. Got to keep it low. If you bought the fantasy, it's murder in the first degree. Yeah. Yeah. Is my sexuality creating such a tragedy? Yeah. Don't lift me up to tie me down. I just wanna love it. Baby, stay with me on the ground. Talk with me, let me go. Got to keep it low. Talk with me, let me go. Got to keep it low. Don't lift me up to tie me down. I just wanna love it. Baby, stay with me on the ground. Talk with me, let me go. Got to keep it low. Talk with me, let me go. Got to keep it low. I'm so tired of playing this crazy game. Someone's always left out in the rain. Is there a chance that we can make it? Just keep it real, cause we can't fake it. Yeah. Cause you and I can't take this anymore. We've got to keep our feet right on the floor. There's no more secrets, no more lying. Yeah. Baby, I'm really, really trying to get to love. Lift me up to tie me down. I just wanna love it. Baby, stay with me on the ground. Talk with me, let me go. Got to keep it low. Talk with me, let me go. Got to keep it low. Don't lift me up to tie me down. I just wanna love it. Baby, stay with me on the ground. Talk with me, let me go. Got to keep it low. Talk with me, let me go. Got to keep it low. Don't lift me up to tie me down. I just wanna love it. Baby, stay with me on the ground. Talk with me, let me go. Got to keep it low. Talk with me, let me go. Got to keep it low.
That's a mellow Lenny Kravitz there from his album Raise Vibration, good tune called Low. This is LCC Radio and TV. I want to thank our guest today. Valerie Marvin was with us today in her capacity as the Vice President of the Historical Society of Greater Lansing. She's going to be on the street tonight at 7 o'clock with the Cherry Hill 2 walk. It's a walk that's put on by the Historical Society. And, of course, they do it all summer long, so you can check that out. It's free to the public. By the way, she's also the state historian and curator in downtown Lansing. Valerie Marvin, appreciate her coming in today. Also from the American Cancer Society, we had Mike Megacy. Mike is a health systems manager, a lot of interesting topics today. And Steve Zabin, the big Oldsmobile Homecoming, you can check that out Saturday. It's going to be at the Auto Owners Insurance Complex out there on the west side on Kreitz Road. And they're going to have a lot of cars. He said maybe 500 to 600 cars. It's going to be quite a show, and it's absolutely free. Well, that's going to do it for the Coffee Break Show. Enjoy this beautiful day, and we will see you tomorrow. Have a good one, folks. Thanks for watching and listening.